Welcome to another episode of Where the Stones Have a Story to Tell. In this portion of the series, we are covering a variety of different cairn structures. Cairns are piles of stone. They have a ton of different variations, shapes, sizes, orientations. Today in particular, we're going to cover what the handbook on stone structures calls cairn between boulders. I've come up with my own name that I think is a little more descriptive. In this case, I call them connected cairns. You see here, connected cairns go from embedded boulder to embedded boulder. This one runs about 30 yards up until this big outcropping of rocks and another 10 yards past it and around it. We're going to go explore it. We're going to go explore it bit by bit. But Justin and I, some thoughts on what it is and why it might be out here. It's not all that clear. Some of these structures, their origins and their functions have been lost to history. So in my research, they could have the connection to either a blocking mechanism where spirits and shamans were calling spirits and trying to keep spirits out, or a channeling mechanism. Either way, they're very interesting, and they are all over the place in this forest. Some are just a couple feet long, seemingly middle of nowhere. Some run from large boulder outcropping and have actual features built into them. And in this case, we're going to find this one leads to a fascinating cave structure right over my right shoulder. All right, with that, we're going to start at the far side and work our way up this way. All right, we're starting this cairn from this large boulder outcropping from here, and to most people this would look like a small stone wall, except for it doesn't really go anywhere. It goes about 30 yards from the beginning into where it runs into a large boulder crag, if you will, and a bit of a cave system that we're going to take a quick look at. So this runs about 15 yards, and you have an open space here before it picks back up at this boulder. We've seen embrasures or gaps like this with the 600-foot snake effigy, and while I attributed that to possible quarry activity that happened in the 1800s here, I got a comment from a seasoned professional, I'll say, and they felt that it's more likely that this was logging. Real quickly, we are in Gilbert Hills State Forest in Foxboro, Massachusetts, and if you'll notice, these trees here are about the biggest tree you'll see out in this forest. This was completely deforested in the 1800s and then reforested, and a lot of New England was the same way, reforested in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And in this case, there is documented history as to how this was reforested in the early 1900s into 1920. And you can find that information in the community section of this site. All right, so we continue on here, see a variety of different interesting structures here, and we carry across the top. This is, for me, this is a one feature that tends to be more Native American than it would be colonist or settler, where stones carry over the top of boulders. If you're clearing a field and you're trying to conserve your energy, you're probably not hefting boulders on top of boulders to just clear a field. You just pile up around it. All right, we're coming up into this very large rock outcropping here, and we're going to follow this cairn as it wraps around. This is an interesting feature. As it comes through, and you'll see little stones across here, and it'll become more evident in a second that this cairn has continued around here. Now this is about 10-15 yards away from where it came up on this boulder outcropping, and possibly goes as far as this point here. I'm going to continue around to show you that, one, a very interesting structure through here, where this is a four-way boulder and construction here. This is a four-way structure with an open area in the middle. You can see here stones lining up. Stones placed in this hole here, going back into the structure. Stones here. So from an orientation standpoint, north, south, east, and west. And it's the south, the north, and the west that have these stones built in around the structure. But in the east, over here, there is none. All right, let's head up top and take a look. So as we head up here, we can see outcropping here. Tully is beating us up here. But this is a four-way intersection here, running roughly north, south, and east and west, with a small cave structure. We'll hop down here and look through this a little bit further. Now, we saw the outside portion here where stones are built up here and stones are built up here, possibly carrying the cairn through this area or just a different reason altogether. But this has four different paths, and this one heads right out. And we can see the cairn structure here. Okay, this is our first connected cairn structure that I want to demonstrate, leading up to a four-way cave system broken roughly north, south, east, and west. Reminds me a little bit of the King Philip's Cave, not too far from here in Sharon, Massachusetts. And in the next site we're going to head over to right now, it was in the path of one of the cairns whose exit angle, U-shaped cairn, a couple episodes ago, we ran right into. And it has a different but very distinctive feature inside of that. Let's go take a look. All right, we're at the site of another linear cairn, connected cairn that runs in an L shape. We've run into this before in one of the directions that we followed outside of a U-shaped cairn, brought us right here. Like the last cairn in this episode, it ends in a very interesting feature, but we're going to take this from beginning to end. All right, let's check it out. So it starts here at this stone. It's on top of an embedded boulder. You can see just under the leaves. And you just carry this forward to the boulder here. And this is where we get into the between boulders nomenclature for this type of cairn. Carries here and then picks up at this boulder here. I'm going to head over the wall so we can see from the lower part. Okay, so we got Tully modeling part of the cairn here. Lighting's not too great. I'm going to get in a little closer so the shadow doesn't block it. You can see between the boulder here, around the boulder as well. This is the path we just brought in here from the beginning. I begin to see some features as it faces this direction. This is also the direction where it faces back toward the cairn from the episode that brought us here the first time. You can see a definite open space here, and one could interpret this as a niche. Continues past this boulder further. Almost a two-tier here. You can see a line of boulders here and some up here. Now this is about, I'd say 30 yards on this leg of the cairn as it continues down. We're headed slightly downhill. We're below a peak. Just on the other side of that peak are some other cairns and a cave, actually, which we'll explore in another episode. And so we end the cairn here in this niche-like structure. I'm going to show you just how it's carrying back a little bit this way. It doesn't carry continuing down the hill. Here is, I think, one of the key features, which I would get right in here. Think of that as a niche. And if we're looking at the Sunseeker app, you would have, this is oriented to the winter solstice, and this faces directly out. And this faces directly out. If you can see that there, to the sunset on the winter solstice. So a niche at the end of an L-shaped cairn at the base of a hill, facing directly to a U-shaped cairn about 100 yards away, and with other structures around. It should be noted, and we're seeing now a very clear pattern in structures of this nature, that they are right by ancient bodies of water. This is an area that has not been modified by the CCC back in the 30s. You can see Tully headed toward a little swamp over there. Okay, this concludes our connected linear cairn episode. But what you've seen is these can run about 30-40 yards and run across or over boulders, between the boulders, and have features in and of themselves. In this case, I think a couple of instances of cairns facing sunset on the winter solstice, and the line that brought us in here directly that way to a U-shaped cairn that led us through here and to other structures. All right, in our next episode, we will get into a very famous type of cairn structure, and that is split stone cairns. We will touch on split wedge concept, but the split stone cairns we've seen time and time again in relationship to rituals or ceremonies that have to do with underworld spirits. Very often they have a niche associated with them, and can have relationships to both the sun and the water spirits in the historical Native American rituals in this area. Until next time, thanks for watching.